OTAs are in the books. It's now time to turn the page and look forward to minicamp. And Nick Wright said what? All of that and more coming up next. You know why you're here. Let's talk Ravens with Yolanda. Let's go. A healthy balance at every position. If they brought in Derrick Henry, because the Ravens aren't serious. Eric DeCosta's make or break season, off season. Good evening, Ravens flock. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome into the channel on this Monday evening. Hope you had a great weekend. We are here to discuss the final week of OTAs. Just a quick recap because it wasn't too much that was newsworthy, with the exception of maybe one thing that caught my eye. But we're also now going to turn the page and look to see what we can expect or what we're hoping to see, right, for minicamp. Minicamp begins tomorrow, and we have several holes that I still don't think have quite been filled. Even though we have personnel, even though we have players in those positions, I still have several question marks, but we'll dive into all of that. And you know we are going to talk about Lamar Jackson, right? Because Chris Sims said what? Nick Wright said what? We'll get into that. But first, before we do, let me say good evening to everyone who has already joined in the chat. We have Brandon Bazell. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're doing fine. We also have Nana in the house. Good evening, Nana. I hope you're doing well also. And we have Big Reg, host of Big Boy Talk. Good evening. Please make sure you go over and subscribe to Big Reg's channel. He does a live show every Friday night, Big Boy Talk, where he talks sports, life, just great content. So make sure to go over and give him a follow and subscribe to his channel. Tanja Bowman, long time no see, Tanja. We were just in another stream, and so thanks for joining tonight, Tanja. Good to see you. And we also have Jeff J. Yes, welcome in, Jeff. Hey, how are you? I hope you're doing fine too. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Happy you're here. Quickly, just a real quick few minute recap on OTAs the last week. Not a whole lot stood out to me in terms of where we are as a team, because I know OTAs, right, historically, or just generally speaking, it's primarily for the rookies. And I think that our rookies were really impressive. We heard a lot of good things about our rookies. Nate Wiggins, not too much about him last week, but certainly the first few weeks of OTAs, he was doing good. We heard his name quite a bit. And Tez Walker, that's who we heard. That's who we heard from or heard about this past week. And it was good to hear. Good news on Tez. Because for me, the wide receiver room is still a question mark. Now, that does not mean that I'm ready to leave the responsibility in the hands of Tez Walker, a rookie. But it was really nice to hear that he won some matchups and lost some. Last week, especially against TJ Tampa, they both, held their own. So that's good to hear, right? It's good to hear that they are complementing each other, and we're seeing how these players are starting, or especially our newbies, are starting to develop, take shape into the league and, carve out a name for themselves. I still have questions when it comes to our rookies, especially because I remember a few years ago when we signed Pepe Williams, Jalen Armour Davis. I specifically recall a clip, I think, on the Baltimore Ravens website, or maybe it was a video, and they interviewed Pepe. And Pepe's, one of the things that the young lady said to Pepe, she said, Pepe, you are rapidly becoming a fan favorite here in Maryland, in Baltimore. The people love you and they're so excited to have you here. And Pepe said, yeah, that's good. I'm glad I'm becoming a fan favorite, but I got to get out there and make some plays. Fast forward a couple of years later, have we seen Pepe make those plays? We haven't. So when I consider rookies, at least this is my perspective. When I consider rookies, I'm trying to temper my expectation because, yes, there's always the hype. There's the buzz. We're excited to have them. We want them to contribute immediately. We want to see a return of investment. We pick these players high in first round, second round, and we want to see them go out there and do their thing, right? But that's not always the case. So leave me a comment in the chat if you are watching live. And if you're watching on replay, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Let me know, who were your standouts in OTAs? For me, I really didn't have a standout per se. I was just really happy to hear that our rookies were making progress. They were getting used to the speed and getting acclimated to the speed of the game. That's important. And now, of course, our rookies are learning. There's a lot to learn coming from a college level to now the NFL. And we're putting a lot on their shoulders. But that's a part of it. When you sign up to become an NFL player, that's what you get. So I didn't really have one standout per se, but I can say that I'm really pleased with what I'm hearing from our rookies. I got a chance to hear from Roger Rosengarten last week. He did an interview. This is one who I think there is a lot of expectation, at least for me. There's a lot of expectation for Roger Rosengarten because he is expected to be a day one starter. As it stands right now, if the season were to begin this upcoming Thursday, Roger Rosengarten, to me, would be taking center stage. He would be right there on that offensive line blocking for Lamar. So because that expectation is there, that Roger Rosengarten will be a day one starter unless something else happens. But if he is on pace to be a day one starter, I'm watching him extra closely because, as I mentioned, you're blocking for my quarterback. I want to make sure that you are ready to do that because that's a lot to ask of a rookie. But, we've had great success. We had Tyler Linderbaum come in his rookie year. We put a lot on his shoulders. We asked him carry the load as center, and he did just that. And he's been going full steam ahead ever since. So that's not to say that it cannot happen. It certainly can. And for me, the expectation is that Roger Rosengarten, I'm watching for him. I want to see how he performs. Yeah, Nana said no one. No one for her really stuck out in OTAs. And again, me either. And as I mentioned, OTAs really is just a chance for the rookies to get acclimated, to kind of see what they have, to see what, who's good at what, who needs developing here. So it's a good, experimental phase, if I can say it that way. But I still want to remember that this team, as wonderful as it is, as great as it can be, we still have several holes to fill. And we'll discuss that in just a bit when we talk more about what we're looking for as we move into minicamp. But that leads me to topic number 2. Lamar Jackson. That's right, Lamar Jackson. Every time his name comes up in the media, there's just so much buzz around him. I'm just happy he's my quarterback. I'm happy that, he plays for my team, but he just can't get a break. The media just, I don't know. The disrespect with Lamar Jackson, it's bothersome. It's troubling. Earlier this week, or maybe, I'm sorry, not this week, but late last week, there was a report, right? Or an interview, and it was said about Lamar. Okay. It was said about Lamar, and Chris Sims said the same thing. And this was from Nick Wright. Lamar Jackson is not a top 5 quarterback. He's not. And according to Nick Wright, he put number 1, Pat Mahomes, 2, Josh Allen, 3, Joe Burrow, 4, Stroud, and 5, Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford. What I thought about when I read that or listened to it, and then I saw it again online as I was reading it, when I saw it on social media, the first thing that came to mind was, out of all of those players that were named, who won an NFL league MVP? Out of all of those players that were named, who was a 2-time league MVP? One of which was unanimous. Who can say that? None of them. And to put Matt Stafford before Lamar Jackson, how many playoff wins does Matt Stafford have? Let me know in the chat. If you're watching on replay, leave a comment down below. Let me know. Because yes, there's always the narrative, right? That, oh, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, led by Lamar, they're good. They're a really good team until they make the playoffs. There's always going to be a narrative, right? There's always going to be we're not good enough. And certainly it was embarrassing how we went out and ended last season. It certainly was, but it's a lesson learned. And I expect us to pick up the pieces this year and be different. And by different, I mean better. So when I saw that, and I think Chris Sims had something very similar to say right here. Chris Sims, his top 5 quarterbacks, Pat Mahomes, and then that was the legendary. And then unicorns, Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow. I'll revisit him in a moment. And then just, okay, I have to put these people on here. I don't really want to, but they're okay. They're okay. We have Lamar Jackson at 4, Matt Stafford at 5, and Justin Herbert right behind at 6. And as I mentioned, I'm coming back to the question, how many playoff wins does Matt Stafford have? 0. But more importantly, when I look at a list like this and I see Joe Burrow, and I make no apologies for it. I like Joe Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. I'm not a Joe Burrow fan. Now, I'm not rooting for Joe Burrow, but I have to recognize and acknowledge greatness when I see it. I'm going to keep it 100% real. And to me, Joe Burrow is that. The problem I have with Joe Burrow is we often say in sports, the best ability is availability. And how many seasons has Joe Burrow been in the league versus how many seasons has Joe Burrow been able to lead his team all season? Yes, someone brought up in one of my recent videos or live streams that let's not forget Lamar Jackson. He was injured and I think it was 2021, 2022. And he rattled off, injuries. And my response was simple. Yes, he was injured in those seasons that you mentioned. And one thing that I immediately noticed, when we don't have Lamar Jackson at the helm, we don't have a chance, at least in my eyes. Sure, I think we're still a really good team, but Lamar Jackson is just that. He is, I don't want to say he's everything to us as an organization, but he's certainly very vital. He's integral to us being successful. So, and Nana said, exactly. Not one of them has even touched exactly. That's right. One of them named hasn't even touched the field, just drafted. Yeah. And Tanja says, so Lamar Jackson is not a unicorn. No other QB can freeze a defense. Ooh, I like that. Freeze them. Just stop them in their tracks and manipulate them like he can. He is one of one. I agree. But according to Chris Sims, he's not. He's not. He's just an ordinary. He's okay. I'm going to add him up here because I think I should, but right? I want to take a moment to say hello to the Woo Pig podcast. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining. If you love the Arizona, I keep saying Arizona and it's Arkansas. It is Arkansas Razorbacks. If you love Arkansas Razorbacks college football and basketball, please make sure to go over to the Woo Pig podcast and give them a follow. Subscribe to their channel. They're doing big things over there. But, going back to Lamar, I just really want for him this year, I want Lamar to show exactly who he is. I want Lamar to show exactly what he can do. I want Lamar to silence the critics. And the only way I think that can get done is if we win a Super Bowl. And even then, even when I'm speaking it into existence, we are winning the Super Bowl this year. Book it. You heard it here first. Even when we do that, there'll still be, there'll be a rhyme. There'll be a reason. It was because such and such happened, or it really wasn't Lamar. It was because of. That's fine. Lamar stood on that stage when we drafted him and he said, I'm bringing a championship to the Baltimore Ravens. And that's what I believe him to do. So with that, I'll just say, I hope that Lamar Jackson is ready. And one thing that we'll talk about a little bit later in the video, in the live stream, is how we could help him. And I think there's a possibility out there. I don't know if it's within reach, but we'll see. Before we move on, last thing, speaking of Lamar, protection for him is a must. It's crucial. And something that I saw online concerned me a little bit. I'm trying not to get too concerned, but I have to pay attention because this information that I'm about to share with you, it's not just out there for nothing. And again, it's one day. It's not, end all be all. No, it's certainly not. But here it is. And I'll make it a little bit bigger if I can. Here we go. This was an article that came out last week from the Baltimore Beatdown, and it talks about Daniel Falele. And with Daniel Falele, it mentions how he struggled last week. He was okay weeks 1 and 2 of OTAs. And because Daniel Falele is an O-lineman, I'm really paying attention because I said O-line still does give me a little bit of concern, at least right now. And the article goes on to say that things changed in the final week. And Falele struggled in practice. He was gassed, winded. He had to go to the sideline. He was kneeling, trying to catch his breath. He was heavily fatigued, and his play suffered. This is very, very concerning. For me, it's concerning because we're just getting started at OTAs, at least as of last week. We're really just getting started. We haven't even had that ramp up, portion of the offseason that we are known for, or that, all of the teams employ. And if he is already at that level of fatigue, distress, that is concerning. Again, it literally could be just one day. It could have been he had an off day. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. Maybe something was going on with him, nutrition, maybe he was dehydrated. It could have been anything, right? So I am going to just watch and see. But when I saw that article, it did surprise me just a bit. And it did give me a little bit of concern. So as I said, speaking about Lamar Jackson, that's something that we will have to, we'll have to wait and see in terms of protection for our quarterback. Little Joker, good evening to you. I appreciate you coming by. Lil Joker is a Vikings fan. Other purple, he supports the other team, but I appreciate you coming to just to hang out with us Ravens fans. You're welcome here, and I appreciate you giving Lamar Jackson credit. He doesn't have to. Lil Joker can say, no, he's okay, because he's not a Ravens fan. per se. We're trying to get him to maybe like the Ravens a little bit and kind of just cheer for us, and when nobody's looking, when nobody's watching. But I appreciate you for coming by. And yes, Lamar is our guy. He really is. And so for me, making sure that he is taken care of, he's protected, he's given the weapons that he needs, and we'll speak about a weapon in just a little bit. But time to turn the page, and we move on now. We look ahead to see what happens in minicamp. Before we begin talking about minicamp, I'd like to hear from you. Let me know in the chat. What player, who, what is it that you're looking to see in minicamp? Is there a certain player that you're watching for? Is there a certain position group that you're looking at? And for me, I would say it would have to be O-line. O-line is what I'm watching. So I'm not watching one particular player. I'm watching the O-line as a group. Another thing that I'm looking for in minicamp, health of our players. I want to know what's happening with David Ojabo. I was in a stream earlier, and one of the concerns was edge rusher. One of the primary concerns was, how are we going to effectively set the edge? That's a concern. I'm looking at David Ojabo. He's been injured now ever since we drafted him. And I mentioned earlier, same thing with Joe Burrow. You can be a great player. You can be dynamic. But if you're not available, are you useful to your team? So for me, David Ojabo, Coach Harbaugh said maybe a week or so ago, Ojabo should be ready by training camp. Training camp? That's when we have to wait to see. I want to know, is he going to be out there ramping up in minicamp? We need him. We need him. Not only him, Tanja knows it. We need my guy, Odafe Owe. We have to have a big season from him. And because this is a contract year for Odafe, I have all the confidence in the world that he is going to step up and perform for us. I don't have any reservations, especially this year, that Odafe Owe will not answer the call. I think he will. I am also looking for the health of Marlon Humphrey. I want to know what's going on with him. What's the status? Something else, along with the article that I just shared with you from the Baltimore Beatdown, a couple of injuries that were noted in that same article. Adisa Isaac. Now, we drafted Adisa Isaac knowing that he had a history of injuries. He was injured in college, I believe 2021, sat out that year, or maybe sat out 2022, but came back in 2023 or came back in 2022, whatever year he sat out, he came back the next year and had a great year. Same thing last year. He was a good player. He did well as an outside linebacker, but now he's injured again. It could be a minor injury. It could be something that's just, let's keep an eye on it. Nothing to say that we are believing that he's not going to be available when we need him, because I expect at least the rookies to play preseason, right? So that's a huge concern. Adisa Isaac, Bo Braid. We talked a little bit about safety earlier. What are we doing there? We need to consider depth at safety, because behind Kyle Hamilton, who do we have? With Marcus Williams behind him, who do we have? We have Ardarius Washington. And we know that Marcus Williams is a wonderful safety. He's a great, an excellent complement, right, to Kyle. But let's be honest. If Marcus is not available because of injuries, and since we have since we have signed him, because when he was with the Saints, he was healthy. I don't recall hearing an injury history with Marcus Williams. We signed him, and he's always injured. So then behind him is Ardarius Washington. Him too. He also has had a fair share of injuries. So we need depth at safety. We lost Jadeveon Clowney at edge. We have David Ojabo, who may or may not be ready. So these are positions on the defense that I think we really, and Marlon, going back to even Marlon at corner. What if Marlon is not a full go? What if Marlon is a full go, but he's just not what he used to be? That's a possibility. Then what? Then what? Excuse me. So these are positions that I think we need to, one more time, excuse me. These are positions that I think we really need to focus on. We need to pay attention to them. So these are concerns, and this is kind of what I'm looking for. Going into minicamp, this is what I'm watching for. Those who've been injured, how are they progressing? I mean, we can throw in there Ronnie Stanley, even though he wasn't injured recently, but we know that he's dealt with injuries for a long time. How is that going to impact him? How is that going to affect him? So let me take a moment and hear from you in the chat. Nana said, yes, injuries are a problem. They're a big problem. Keep your eyes out for it. Keep your ears open, flock. Listen to see what's being said about our players. Listen to see what's not being said, because sometimes it's not about what you say, it's about what you don't say. And when these questions are asked of John Harbaugh, coaches, coaching staff, and they're, very hesitant to give you an answer, I think you have your answer right there. So, I'm paying attention to that going into minicamp. Agent E, good evening. Thank you for joining. Happy you're here. Yeah, absolutely, Nana. That's right. Speak the truth. That's right. I love our Ravens, and I always will, but I can't turn a blind eye, a deaf ear to the fact that our team right now, we're not complete. We're not far from it. I don't think we are far off from complete, but we're not there right now. And EDC is going to need to make a few more additions. And it could even be addition by subtraction, however we get there, okay? We just need to add a few more pieces. And then I think we'll be okay. I think our team will be set. Tim Hughes, good evening. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Okay, start the stream over. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes, go Ravens, and I hope everyone has a good night. Same to you, Tim. Thanks for being here. Thank you for joining. Jeff J said that Marlo talks too much. I feel like he's distracted. I want to laugh at your comment, Jeff, because you're right. He does talk a lot. He does. And he could very well be distracted. And that's why I asked, what happens even if Marlon is cleared physically, meaning no injury, no hurdle, no setback, but he's still not there in the game 100%. Then what do we do for our corner position? What do we do? Tanja says that EDC is not being aggressive enough for her. We need a proven safe. Now she's going, Nana, this is the one who's preaching and speaking the truth. Say it again. EDC, we need a proven safety, a proven edge, and maybe a lineman. He praises the Eagles well. Let me put her comment back up. He praises the Eagles well, doing some of what they do. Yeah. We need, there are several pieces that I think our team is lacking right now. And, when the offseason began, I was begging, please, please, please get us a wide receiver. Get us a proven wide receiver for Lamar Jackson. That's what I wanted. And part of me still does, which brings us to our last topic. But before I bring up this last topic, I will say that I don't think that wide receiver is as much of a need right now in comparison to the other positions of need. On the defense, to me, O-line, but I put this in here just because I think this is a person who I think could come in, excuse me, and have an instantaneous impact for the better for our team. Brandon Aiyuk. There is trouble in the land between Brandon and the 49ers. This is where I think the Ravens can really capitalize on that. We could bring Brandon Aiyuk in. How are we going to do that, you ask? I'm glad you asked that. Yes, we have a very small salary cap. We'd have to finesse and figure out some things. So let me put on my lawyer cap, right? Let me put on my negotiator cap. How do we make this happen? With our limited cap space, how could we bring in a Brandon Aiyuk? Well, we would have to go through every player on that roster, one by one, call them in, and then say, have you lived up to your contract? If not, we need to restructure. It starts from, the top all the way down. And we'd really have to go in and figure out who we could restructure, how we could free up some cap space, because we already know from last week, Justin Jefferson set the market for wide receivers. At least $30 million a year, at least. And the Ravens, we don't even pay half of that. I mean, we paid half of that for Odell Beckham Jr. last year for his handful of catches. But if we are really serious about giving Lamar Jackson a true wide receiver, a proven talent that would instantaneously take our offense to the next level, we consider bringing in a Brandon Aiyuk. It's going to take an arm and a leg to get him. It really would. But the amount of success we would have on offense with him, Derrick Henry in the backfield, Lamar Jackson being Lamarvelous as he is, and with an O-line that could maybe cobble it together to block and protect long enough with a Brandon Aiyuk, that would be amazing. But I've kind of relinquished the desire, so to speak, to bring in someone like that big name. I don't think it's going to happen. And my question here was, should the Ravens try to sign Brandon? But a better question is, will they? For me, should they? Absolutely. Will they? I doubt it. I doubt it. Because as we discussed tonight, there are bigger concerns, more pressing concerns for our team. And as a fan, standing on the outside looking in, I want to know what EDC is going to do over these next 2 months. We still have time left in this offseason to bolster our roster to become better. And then let's chase the Lombardi. Hashtag Ravens chasing the Lombardi. Big Reg from host of Big Boy Talk says, then they would have wished they kept KBK. This man, I will give it to Big Reg. I will give him this. He has been a 100% believer in, what's the guy's name? I always forget it. I know it's Blue Kelly. Is it Kyle? Is it Kylu? Something like that. Caillou Blue Kelly. He believed in him and still does. I don't know why. Where is he now? Is he still with the Commanders? Is he on the bench? Who knows? Who knows? Tanja says, she said, I'm done hoping for a receiver. They're going with who they have. I've resigned myself to believe that too. Absolutely. Lil Joker said Nate Wiggins. I am hopeful, Lil Joker, in Nate Wiggins. I am. I really am. Because we're going to need him. We're going to need him should our cornerback situation not be up to what we want it to be. But I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not sure if you were here, and I'll just give this really quickly. I try to be level-headed when it comes to rookies. Yes, there's always the buzz and the excitement surrounding them. They're new to our team. They're young. They're energetic. They're ready to go. They're vibrant. And we have high hopes for them. But I've seen, as a Ravens fan, I've seen my fair share of hopefulness for rookies that just really don't pan out. So I'm not skeptical, but I'm not entirely hopeful either. I just have to wait and see. But yes, I agree. Lil Joker says, his Vikings will not lose our star player. Good for you. I mean, congrats on signing Justin Jefferson. You probably would not have been my friend or wanted to join subscribe to my channel had you heard me maybe a month or two ago, because as soon as the offseason began and shortly after that, I was like, we need to bring in a Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, Justin Jefferson. And so last week, when the news that the Vikings re-signed him, my little feelings were deflated. But kudos to Justin. Now you just got to, for the Vikings, just figure out what you're doing at quarterback. And I mean, who knows? But I mean, I think Justin Jefferson deserves every penny. He's just that good. I wanted him. I sure did. I'm not even going to pretend. Jared011 Green, thank you for joining. Please go over to the Southern Ballers Sports channel, and he's going to give you all of the Southern sports, great content over there. Please make sure you go and subscribe. Brandon Bazel also has a channel where he does amazing food reviews, and I'm still waiting for that vegan food review. But KBK is still better than Owe. No, he's not. Because I want Brandon, this is what I'd like. Midway through the season, whatever that week that is, midway through the season, I want Brandon Bazel to come back and tell me that he was wrong because Owe is having himself a season. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, take a couple more comments and then we will get out of here for tonight. Kalu, he is the starting nickelback for the Commanders. I didn't know he was starting. I just knew he was a part of the Commanders team, but yeah, I don't think the Ravens are wishing that he would. Oh, there we go. Caillou Blue Kelly. Okay. All right. See, I was close. I was in the vicinity of being right. I didn't have his name totally wrong. I didn't botch his name, but anyway, that is all for tonight's show. We turn the page tomorrow. We start mini camp. There's a lot to look for. I'm watching because I be in these streets, okay? I'm out here in these real and digital streets, and I'm listening for people that have all manner of ugly things to say about the Ravens, and all I can say to them is just you watch. You watch. Now I just need the Ravens to help me back up my big mouth that I've been running this off season. Oh, goodness. Did I admit that when Owe didn't get them 10 sacks? I did admit it, but I also prefaced it by saying there was an amendment to the original contract, Brandon. That contract did not have a proviso that allows for or speaks to what happens if a player misses games and is injured due to injury. Owe would have been on pace for the double-digit sacks, but for his injuries. So, yeah. Tanja, yeah, tomorrow's going to be so exciting. Yes, she's going to be right in those streets with me. Get out there in those real and digital streets. Let everybody know that you're proud to be a Ravens fan. We're coming back this year. We are coming for everything. I'm sorry, little Joker. I know that you don't want to really hear that because you are a Vikings fan, but I just got to keep it real. We're coming this year. We just need to fill some holes, and I think we're going to do it. I still have confidence in EDC. Good evening to you, Nisha C. Yes, if you're enjoying tonight's stream, please make sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, welcome. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on your post notifications, because a couple of things I'll say real quick before I head out. I'm starting a series, and the first video it'll be a video, not live stream, but it will be released either this week or next week. If I can get it done this week, I'll certainly release it. But I'm starting a series on football basics because I've had several people message me and ask, can I do some more explaining, a little bit of explaining of what the basics are of football? Because we have a lot of ladies who join the channel or who are interested, or even young men who are just wanting to know more about football, or people who are first-time football watchers. So my series is going to be Learn with Yolanda, football basics. What is a quarterback? And we'll just go through each position, and week by week I'll talk about what I think, share my thoughts on just the basics. I'm not going to get into anything too complicated because I don't want to lose anyone, because we know that football is complex. It's complicated, right? But we can simplify it a bit so that everybody can feel that they can be a part of the conversation too. So That is soon to come. Please make sure you make sure you turn on your post notifications so that you are notified when those videos release. Good, little Joker. Thank you. I'm glad you're coming back. I appreciate it. That was good. And you're going to and listen, we appreciate you. You know, he's going to keep his eyes on the Ravens. He's going to watch out for us. I love it. I love it. I love to hear that. I'm going to keep my eyes out on Justin Jefferson too. I'm watching. So that's what's coming up. Don't forget, we have What If Wednesday, where I'm going to ask a question on my community tab. So come through on Wednesday and leave your thoughts on whatever it is I share on a hypothetical question that could make our team better or what could change if we did this. So my What If Wednesday will be out Wednesday morning. I'd love to dialogue with you. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you and spend time just chopping it up. Yes, I use slang correctly. I said it. Yes. So Brodney, if you're watching or if you're watching on replay, Brodney gives me a hard time because I don't really speak slang, but I'm trying to get there. I love to chop it up with you, talk all things Ravens football. Well, that's it for tonight. You all take care. You stay safe. Thank you for joining. And always remember, go Ravens. God bless.